We are recording. Chris and Frieda, welcome back to the Once Bitten podcast. Third time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us again.
always great to
And,
talk to you.
and this time you're coming back to talk about not a book.
That is right. Yes, this time we're going coming to talk about sports.
So the two other books that, if people haven't read them, Bitcoin for Kiddos, which is a great book, very well illustrated. I believe the illustrator might even be on the call today. And and 99 Signs, You're a Bitcoin Maxi, which is a great fun book as well. One of those books you just want to have lying around the house on your coffee table on the sideboard for your friends and family to pick up. So excellent work on doing those. What's the feedback been over the last, well, it's a couple of years ago now that you released the first one?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've sold a couple thousand copies of the books combined. It's really kind of a grassroots efforts. Since we started those two books, we had another child, and so raising two kids that are now not as small as they once were, and having to deal with being the soccer parents and getting up early and make the lunches and all that other kind of stuff. Time goes fast. There's
Mhm.
never enough time anymore. But it's been a grassroots effort. People are still finding it, and orders still keep coming through. So, we deliver as they come, and we're really excited that it's funny writing that book 3 years ago, not knowing what the future would hold, Bitcoin for Kiddos, that is, and seeing that it's still kind of uh, keeping track
Mhm.
with what's happened or happening
Yeah.
in society.
Yeah, well done. And congrats on the new little one. We need more Bitcoiner kids.
That's right.
That's right. And they get their earful of Bitcoin podcasts on a regular basis. So
Yeah.
even at 3 years old and six, they're hardcore maxis.
Good to know. Okay, Lauren, what yeah, you go ahead and ask your question. This would be the best way to do it.
What does sports got to do with Bitcoin?
Ooh.
That's a good question. And it's one we ask ourselves often. But what we think when we think of sports is more about the platform sports provides to bring people together from all different walks of lives and all different backgrounds and experience levels with financial education and anything else, and give everybody something that they can compete in and root for. And so, Bitcoin is an inclusionary technology and ecosystem. And in that case, we want to use sports and its inclusionary aspects to help bring people together and help them learn about Bitcoin and what, being a self-sovereign individual can provide to their lives.
Inclusionary, I think it's a new word. Um, it was interesting how we started this off, and it really came about, we definitely are in sports and all of sports, and like I said, being inclusionary there. Um, but it really kicked off with golf, and golf actually has a lot of similarities to Bitcoin with, actual proof of work. Like you can't be good at a golf game without actually putting the work in and training hard. And I think that, swaps over into a lot of other sports, obviously, when you look at pro athletes. And then with golf, also, it's specifically like the low time preference that, comes in from that we know from Bitcoin that we kind of adopt, golf is kind of like a game of patience. And there was actually an article written by Trey Sellers and Rocky
Walt.
Walt. And, they drew the parallels in between golf and Bitcoin. And that kind of, I think, was partially inspired by the first Bitcoin golf event that Chris had put together at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. And so it's kind of cool how, there were some Bitcoiners there that found the parallels for us. So
Yeah, they're at Unchained, and I think Joe Burnett would be a little upset if we didn't mention his name too, because he was the third person who wrote that article.
Excellent. And I was lucky enough to be part of the whole Coiner Challenge in the Madeira conference at the beginning of this year in March, which was put together by the Free Madeira guys, who've done a great job. And actually, we paid in Bitcoin at the club to play as well for all the club hire and everything, which was awesome. But we had such a great time. The guys that went out and played, many of us meeting for the first time. We had Eric V Stacks over here, like, you know, walking around like the mountaintops of Madeira. He was getting blown away by the vistas, and it was just great to have him on the course. He'd flown all this way across with his family, and there was a guy, I can't remember his name, Justin, I think. He'd never picked up a golf club in his life and turned up to play the Bitcoin Whole Corner Challenge. And
Wow.
he was just accepted, of course, with open arms. Like the 3 or 4 ball that he was on, they were just giving him tips, showing him around the course, trying to teach him how to play the game. And he had such a great fun. He went back a few days later just to play a game with another couple of guys. So he got bitten with the bug. Nico Yilch over here is getting into golf in a big way. And yeah, I love the parallels, like the patience aspect, the low time preference, the less is more kind of approach to golf. Like, because if you're going out there with a high time preference mindset, you're gonna have the worst round. It's just, you can't rush that thing. Whereas if you're
Absolutely.
a sprinter, you got to get out there and you've got to go for it, right? You've got 9.8 seconds to get this right, and that's there's no real other like low time preference parallels. I don't think as as fit as well as the sport of golf. But I don't know. I might be triggering a few people out there with that mindset.
Yeah, some other ideas might be tennis or pickleball. Definitely individual sports where it's not like a team sport where you can pass. So if you're not having a good offensive day, you can just play defense, or you can be a playmaker or whatever. In golf, if you're not playing well, you're not playing well, and no one's going to save you. Similar to Bitcoin and its custody, solutions. And if you mistreat your custody of Bitcoin and something happens, there's nobody there to save you, you know?
Yeah, and for me, Lauren, I think this ties into the cultural aspect that I've been talking to Avi about a lot. Culture gets uh, it's a grassroots thing, it's a bottom up thing, and sport has been such a huge part of human culture, as has music, obviously, and film and the arts, stage work and song, whatever else. Sport is right up there. And if we can blend our love of sport, and yes, I love the meme, hey, you see the game last night, but when you're actually out there and connecting with people, there's a different thing going on for sure.
I think it's also, we just really saw the opportunity, and people are very comfortable with the sports that they know already. And it's like, it is kind of like a comfort zone that you get people, watching sports, doing sports, especially, here where we are at in the American culture, it's very, and then Europe with soccer and all that. Um, I think from that aspect also, like, if you find somebody in a very comfortable situation and they're, playing a familiar sport, and then, there's time on your hands and you start having the conversation with about Bitcoin, that's really, the orange pilling tool that we're kind of looking for. And so, like, as we're putting together these tournaments, it's really also like this blend of, the fiat world with the Bitcoin world. And, there's a lot of people that I talk to on a daily level, really, that are like, I've heard of Bitcoin, Bitcoin is great, I think, but I really don't know much about it. And because it's talking about technology, they're automatically out, right?
Mm.
They're like, you know, everyday store owners or whatever. And so when I try to get into that a little bit more and explain it a little bit more, if you find time with them and you actually show them like an interface of, how easily it is to pay with Lightning, how the similarities, are to like PayPal or whatever, then they're like, oh, I thought it was more complicated than that. And so I think that it's nice also to be able to kind of mingle the fiat crowd with the Bitcoin crowd, because all of a sudden, you have the mass talking about like Bitcoin as if it's normal, and that why aren't you using it, right? And so, we have really cool things on the horizon, along that concept of just like, orange pilling more of the community, but like in that gentle way where if you're interested, come out and we'll show you kind of everything.
Mhm.
So.
It's been a
Yeah, in
great
a lot of ways,
success.
it's a soft.
Go ahead, Chris.
To say in a lot of ways, it's a soft sell. At the Bitcoin Sports Network, ultimately, what we're hoping to accomplish here in the next few years is to really create a professional golf tournament where people can come out and engage in golf just like they would at the Live Tour or PGA Tour event. Not necessarily on that caliber. There's lots of different, like almost like the soccer Premier Leagues, there's lots of different levels to it.
Yeah.
And so we would probably start on a lower tier of that, but the tournament would be, would have a Bitcoin prize pool and denominated in Bitcoin. And we would really inspire, competitive competition to come out and buy for the Bitcoin and also sell tickets. And then with concessions and different types of memorabilia, you have the option to pay in cash and you have the option to pay in Bitcoin. And I think over time, if we can create these marketplaces where people have the opportunity to see others using it, but not be pressured to use it themselves, then it becomes more synonymous with regular life. And then when they do have to make that decision, it's more of a gentle step rather than a push off a cliff. Similar to kind of how like email started taking adoption in the older generations.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen the success that the Bitcoin racing team have had here in the UK. And they've just finished out their season with Chris winning his first race, actually. And it's just consistency. So this is, I think, their third season running Bitcoin liveried cars around different circuits in the UK. And now they're in two championships, the City Car Cup. So we're talking like grassroots plebby stuff. Yeah. And the Mini Cooper Virtue Challenge. And they get TV coverage, and you get the commentators saying, and Chris McKenzie in the 21 Bitcoin car over and over again. And it's that consistency that people see it week in, week out. And they see that these guys are wearing the Bitcoin signs, and they're getting the Bitcoin sponsors. And they're coming up, the other teams are coming up asking, like, what is this? Like, so it is in front of hundreds of thousands of spectators weekly, because it gets beamed live on television on ITV, and then you have the tens of thousands of spectators that turn up over the weekend for the meets. So it's it's an incredible way to just slowly drip feed those touch points to the general public. But Lauren, did you I think we ordered we've answered your question.
Yes, you have.
Did you have any follow-ups?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Fantastic. We succeeded.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So let's figure out what Bitcoin sports are, actually. The reason I was 10 minutes late for our scheduled meeting was because I got held up at the golf shop ordering a new set of clubs. So that's my Christmas present. And
this is why we're friends, because you have prioritized correctly in life.
Their system was down and payment took a little bit longer than usual. Who would have thought, huh? Well, I've got something that never mind. So I got measured up about a week and a half ago and realized that I'd been hitting the wrong shafts and the wrong length shafts for far too long, and listened to the advice of a professional. And that's my Christmas gift. So that's why I was late.
Rates were all out of whack, though.
Yeah, exactly. But why Bitcoin Sports Network? Where did this all come from? What was the impetus? We've gone from Bitcoin authors to organizing golf competitions.
Yeah, I think
how it started was really Chris's passion for golf all of his life. And so he was very selfish in just putting a little social media post out when we knew we were about to move to Nashville, and Bitcoin conference had announced Nashville. So he's like, oh, we'll be there at that time. I want to get a bunch of buddies out to play some golf. And so he put it out. He put out an X post. I think at that time it was still Twitter, actually. And he was like, who wants to play in like a little friendly Bitcoin golf competition? And this went viral within a day, and with all these people commenting on it and like millions of views. And ultimately, just sitting back, and it's like, oh, people are asking me to get involved. Like, oh, I guess we got to build a website now. And that's really how it started, and it was, and you can tell them because you were more, involved in that. But ultimately it was just like, okay, we're going to give the money to nonprofit, like to the Bitcoin core developers, right? Any profits that are being made. Like Chris is like, being asked for sponsorships. Like, I want to keep the sponsorship cost. Like, I'm going to keep it all really low because I don't want to make any profit off this. I don't know how this is all going to work. We're not an entity yet, right? This was more like he just wanted to go play some golf.
Yeah, yeah. I always wanted to, I love throwing parties. I love giving events, and I love golf, and I love Bitcoin. And so when we found out it was going to be in Nashville, I said, yeah, like she said, let me just see who's might be interested in getting out and playing some golf. And it went viral. It wasn't millions. It was like 100,000 in 2 days, which was like by far the biggest post I had ever had at that time. And then I looked at her, I said, well, I guess I'm putting on a golf tournament. And she said, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, I got a lot of experience and 12 months to figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. The
So
12th month is what sold me.
so then it was just a methodical sort of process. And I work in sales and I work in manufacturing, so I understand a little bit about logistics and creating early partnerships and ordering early and doing all that kind of stuff. And one thing just came, one thing after another came, and before I knew it, I had 16 sponsors and 144 player tickets sold. And I was thinking initially maybe it'd be like 20 guys, so it really opened my eyes to this insatiable lust for sports and this proof of work and game theory that all of us Bitcoiners have. And so I went to work trying to make it as exciting as possible. And we had an after party and award ceremony, and we gave away trophies and
By Crypto
yeah,
Cloaks.
worked with Crypto Cloaks to do that.
That's really fun.
Open happy hour and drinks afterward. And it turned into, as the feedback started coming in, turned into one of the sponsors' favorite events that they went to at the 2024 Bitcoin conference. And so that was pretty cool. And then Trey and Rocky and Joe at Unchained wrote this article about Bitcoin, and it got in the hands of Max and Stacy. And next thing I know, Trey's giving me a call and he's like, hey, Max Kaiser reached out to me and he wants to put together a golf tournament in El Salvador. Can you help him? So I don't want to tell Max no. So I said, of course, and had a quick phone call with Max. And then next thing I know, I was on a plane to El Salvador the following week and met up with him and hashed out kind of the details with him and Stacy and played the course a couple times. And it's a beautiful course, absolutely beautiful, very challenging, but fair.
The El Encanto golf course in El Salvador.
Yeah. And so next thing I know it, here we are with a Bitcoin company, Bitcoin Sports Network, and we're producing our own tournaments and Bitcoin client tournaments and events in the sports world, operating a Bitcoin only events production company. So
Yeah. And it's I will say that like the Bitcoin Golf Championship, that initial tournament, that was like under no entity or whatever. After that, we've just had so many folks that had sponsored it or played it asking like, oh, are you guys going to do it in Vegas? So we were said yes. And there's a golf course secured in Vegas, and we're going to be doing it in Vegas again. It's going to be May 26th, I
yeah,
believe.
It's Memorial Day,
Yeah.
May 26th. 9 a.m. start at Valley High Country Club down there. It's about 10 minutes from the Venetian where the conference is going to be held. And it'll be the same thing, only it's Vegas. So we got to go bigger. We've sold about 40% of the tickets already. Sponsors are signing up. The holes are filling up fast. And yeah, so people were really excited about year one. They're even more excited about year two. And that's great. And then we're also doing another tournament at BitBlock Boom in Dallas on April 3rd. So for people who are going to be there but can't make it to the conference, there's another great opportunity to play some golf with some awesome Bitcoiners.
This is so great. So, right, how many questions? How did you run? So you got 144 people sign up. What was the format? How were you thinking about that? Like, you must have had so many ideas running through your head.
Yeah, so I always think of like those pure Bitcoin ethos like type ethical things. And one of them is don't trust, verify. So I always hated playing. It was a scramble format. All right. We did two-man teams versus four-person teams because in a four-person team, somebody always comes in at -26, and there's no way that's possible. And people cheat all the time, and there's collusion involved in that. So I wanted to create a system that would allow for policing without people, really having to police themselves too hard. And I figured a two-man team, two teams in a group would police each other on what the actual score was. And then we also like to add some Bitcoin inspired holes to it. So we have like a proof of work hole, which is the long drive hole, or the 2 week difficulty adjustment, which would be some sort of difficulty to how many clubs you could use, or some other variation to make the whole hole more challenging, and some other variations. And really, the idea behind it is to handicap the game in a way where the professional players who are playing in these things, and there are professional players playing in these things, that they can't just run away with it, right? That there is a little bit of handicapping. Of course, it handicaps the weaker player as well, but at the same time, kind of gives them a better opportunity if they happen to make a better shot in that situation. And so what we found is that the winning scores tend to be pretty close together. Between first and fifth, it was only between 2 strokes, which we thought was really good considering that, again, we had some scratch and some, plus handicap players in the tournament.
So by scramble, just so for those people that have never played golf before or new to the game, do you want to explain how that works?
Yeah, so a scramble is basically each person gets to, on an example, if you're playing on a hole, each person gets to drive off the tee, and then you choose which ball you want to hit with. And then you pick up the other ball, and then you both hit the shot from that exact same spot that you chose the ball. And you hit from there, and you do that every shot until you're in the hole. Versus a best ball, which is each player plays their own ball, and whoever got the better score, that's the one that counts on the scoreboard.
Scramble's such a great way to play golf.
It's really, like a mulligan on every shot. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, it takes probably a little, if you're playing with a new team member, you learn each other's strengths and weaknesses at which point, so who should hit the safety drive and then who should be able to rip it if you're nicely in the fairway. And it brings in a whole different kind of team management, I would say, and tactics around the golf course, and builds a great bond. And it's a brilliant way to play golf.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the format that we use with all of our tournaments.
Right. How many people are you going to expect to play at Vegas then?
Well, it's really limited to what the course will allow, and they'll only allow 144. So that's the max that we can have.
Yeah. And we still have early bird pricing until the end of this month. And then it'll go up a little bit. Those tickets have been really hot. And actually for the Max and Stacy Invitational Tournament in El Salvador that's coming up January 10th and 11th, all the tickets have been sold out. All the sponsorships have been sold out. Like, we're just like ready to go. We have like 23 sponsors listed here, Unchained being our head sponsor for the tournament. And it's been really fun putting it together. It's also the first tournament that we're putting together remotely, which, brings some challenges, especially with, I'd say I'd probably be safe shipping some supplies to Europe and they would arrive, but El Salvador, it's like a hit or miss. And so we are actually producing a lot of the stuff locally within El Salvador, as far as, just swag and all of that. We have some great partners for the tournament, like Tuneful Life, who does like tours and drivers for us. We even got the Let's Fly app that is going to do helicopter rides. So if somebody like doesn't want to take the 40-minute transportation from, like, let's say they stay at El Zonte Beach, they want to just, fly into the tournament, they could do so. And yeah, it's just really allowing us, like, it's been really fun, like, to go really fancy and a little bit, over the top, as Max and Stacy, they just love all of that. And just like we got to dive into that sphere, including we have 2 winners jackets that are, you familiar with like the Masters jackets and that whole tradition. Jacket, so we are creating currently, and 21 Million Fashion is creating these from scratch, like documenting how the fabric is made, like custom fabric, and traveling and documenting the travel like of his team, like creating these jackets. Like every week you get like a little new snippet as to how these are created. And so those are going to go to the winners, and they're going to be really beautiful, like wearable pieces of art. And Swan has sponsored those jackets, which is incredible to make that happen. These are, not off the rack standard. Like these are like too expensive for me to wear. Let me just put it that way. They came at a very high price point. So
Yeah,
yeah.
one of the things that we really wanted to do is always, support Bitcoin companies and their efforts, because one of the things that I think we found talking with a lot of founders kind of being in this Bitcoin wave that we've somehow found ourselves on is you really get the genuine nature of the founders, and that they really want to help people any way they can, whether it be financially or in life. Bitcoin has many rabbit holes that we all go down it, whether it's health or whether it's food, um, supply chains, or all these different types of things, or the chemicals they're spraying in the atmosphere, and that kind of thing. We all want to live a better life. Now, that's not going to necessarily make happiness, but if we can at least secure our own personal finances and time, energy spent on this planet to spend it the way we want it, then at least that's going to be the best opportunity for everybody to succeed. And you really get that sense when you talk to Bitcoin companies.
Yeah, it's very important, and this is a conversation I had with Simon from Fanfares, and he's building Fanfares because he doesn't like to waste time listening to ads when he's listening to podcasts, and if he could pay, then he would pay, and he'd be able to listen to it ad free. Which there's a great case for that, because a lot of people would do that, spend $2 to $3 just to get via Lightning, obviously, just to get the raw audio. And he's been playing around with that. And we had a conversation, and I did point out, it's like, well, these companies, they need to be able to support a podcast, and it doesn't often cost them that much money. Especially the lower rated podcasts, it could be a couple of $500 a month or something, but they need that. They need to be able to connect with the community in some way, because we are still such a niche category, that they're never going to get out there. And
yeah,
how would the plebs know they even existed?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's support does need to come in so many different ways. It's not just, oh, I need the VC money, then I'm off to the races. Like, no.
right.
Yeah, and that's really what we think of when we are scheduling and planning these events, is we want to make it reachable for the average pleb to be able to get these experiences. And I think that's one of the reasons why our events sell out, is because they do provide such an amazing opportunity for a price that some may have to stretch for, but most are see the extreme value in making those connections and seeing those new industry partners and how the ecosystem is evolving, and making those business connections that we all need. We all need help doing that. And this is just another great way for Bitcoiners to get together and start talking about Bitcoin in the future and creating these opportunities for everyone.
And I think that was part of the philosophy when we first created the company. We were kind of thinking about how do we generate revenue? How do we kind of
yeah. What do my skills have to do with Bitcoin?
How do we bring value to the community? And one thing that was like a hard no for us is like, we're not going to try to make the regular pleb shell out a bunch of cash, even though you might, some of us might be sitting on more than others. It is really something where we want to engage those sponsors, and we also want to engage sponsors that are maybe not traditional Bitcoin companies. And that's really where we think this is a really good, meet of the two, sports and Bitcoin, because we all know that there's traditional companies right now that are trying to make maybe a little splash into, hey, we actually accept Bitcoin, or, and so we give that opening too, as well as, again, what I mentioned at the beginning of people just becoming comfortable with transacting, with this pro tournament that we're, working towards. imagining like, there's the newest Lightning app that, wants to become a sponsor. And in order to, get your drinks or whatever, you have to, pay in Bitcoin, or there's a high, there's a reward for you to pay in Bitcoin, things like that. So it's just making it palatable. And really also, what we've been able to do is really just involve already so many folks in the Bitcoin community that actually now get to work because these sponsors have been so gracious, so, producing these custom jackets from scratch, like 21 Million is doing. We have an awesome designer, Brandon, who I will find his handle, I mention it later, who is doing all of our promotional materials for Max and Stacy, and it's just really, plebs coming together. Like we reached out, we really wanted to make this experience great, especially in El Salvador for first time plebs that may have never visited. And so this tournament that we're doing there is actually, we have a practice round on the 10th, which is a Friday, and then the actual tournament is on that Saturday, the 11th. But on Friday night, we're also including just in the ticket with everything, we bus you down to El Zonte Beach, which is Bitcoin Beach. And we've rented this beautiful house. It's called El Suave House. And it's actually going to become available on Airbnb at some point soon. They just opened it up, and it's like right on the sand, and it's beautiful. And everybody's just going to mingle there and learn a little bit about the history of Bitcoin Beach from the actual folks at Bitcoin Beach, like Roman, who's going to be there to present and kind of, give history and how it all came about, and really talk about the community of what Bitcoin is. Also, for those, that, there's families that are coming where, it might be two people are orange pilled, but maybe the rest is not, right? And so there's kind of like that chance. And then Good Life El Salvador is also sponsoring, their real estate company down there. And, if people are interested in, lingering or whatever, we can do that.
Yeah, there's so much that could happen here. And I'm just thinking, who are the sleeper plebs that work in the golf industry? They work for TaylorMade, or they work for Ping, or they work for Rolex, or they work for Titleist.
It's funny you should say that, because we've actually had a couple reach outs from one of the ladies is a professional on the LPGA tour who's got a major championship under her belt, and one or two tour leads wins that have been on tour for about 10 or 11 years now. Another one's a new guy who just got on the PGA tour. And then we found a custom putter maker in the Bitcoin space that is making a really beautifully designed putter that's going to be a prize at the Max and Stacy tournament, kind of commemorating the tournament in El Salvador and golf, bringing it all together. And I don't think anybody's going to play golf with it. It's such a beautiful piece. But we'll have that up on Twitter as soon as it's ready. And another guy, he's a machinist who does custom stencils on the back of wedges and artwork, and it's all hand painted and everything. And then another gentleman who makes custom watches, who's actually he was the owner of Vigilante Watches, which is a Bitcoin company. Watches. And we've custom made 3 watches, 3 first, second, and third prize watches for the tournament. And each one is like very well done. They're very classy. Like there's something that you want to wear and show off, this wearable trophy where you can, have an orange pill moment on your wrist when somebody mentions your watch. Oh, I won that, at a Max and Stacy Bitcoin golf tournament in El Salvador. I can't think of a better way to start a conversation. So
you guys have, since leaning into this community, and this is what happens, right? Just so much changes so quickly. What's happened in the last 3 years? You've released 2 books. You've moved across states. You've had an extra baby, and now you are organizing international golf competitions.
That's about it.
That is correct. Yes. And where this also kind of stems from, and I really do always have you in my heart when I read your book about homeschooling, because that really plays into this, because, I think we just kind of, obviously we're Bitcoiners, but we could also just be sitting on our Bitcoin and doing nothing, right? But it really comes down to having littles and being that role model that we want to be. And ultimately, we want to show them like, hey, there can be really fun in, making a living. And and what is something that's tangible also to them that they can be at, say like, oh, we went golfing together, our little 6-year-old, he's a good golfer, you know. We are also gonna get into the realms of doing more things for younger kids locally. I can tell you, having moved to Tennessee from California, that a lot more folks are still clinging on to their hard dollar bills. And it is a little bit of a different discussion here to say like, hey, what even is a cryptocurrency? And then, Bitcoin, they're just like, oh, it's evil. 50% of them will say that. And so to kind of, go to like local government here, we have actually a friend that's a little bit south of us, and he educates local government on, what is Bitcoin and why it's actually, good for us and things like that. And so kind of getting into the realms of giving back to, and for me personally, I see it like my passion has always been, giving back to the kids. So we will also organize, with company funds that are hopefully coming in, just educating kids and making like fun sports events for kids, competitions and things like that. As well as I wanted to tap on, when you were mentioning earlier, there's so much that's opening up podcast wise. We are actually, also going into the podcast area with Bitcoin Sports Network, obviously needing to cover some sport events that we organize, but we also really see that into, tapping into all these different areas of people that are already doing things. Like you mentioned, a couple of folks, we obviously understand that there's also, I think it's Sweden, right, that has like a hockey player team that is now sponsored by Bitcoin, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
so
the team in Switzerland, sponsored by Relay.
Switzerland, thank you.
Yes.
Yes. And so tapping into like that network also, and collaborating with those other companies that are already kind of like seeing, hey, the sports field is something, and pushing into that. Yeah.
Yeah, we also have the team in Bulgaria, the oldest football team, soccer for the American listeners in Bulgaria,
Okay.
and now a Bitcoin team, rocking the Bitcoin logo
Wow.
and accepting Bitcoin. And George Manlov is doing a great job of pushing that. Obviously, we have Peter with his football team over here in Bedford. We have the Bitcoin racing team here that I mentioned in the UK, and I've had Adam Gleason on before. He races. He's a motorsports. What does he race? The BMWs around in the US. What's the name of that team? I can't remember. It will come back to me. Sorry, Adam. Yeah, we have so much going on. The hockey team that you referenced that Relay have now sponsored. You're in a very sweet spot here to start this Bitcoin Sports Network, because you're going to have people. The collaboration could be huge. That could be the unlock to, if you have that list of sponsors that are interested in supporting, then when a new initiative does come on board, I'm thinking of the baseball team in Perth now, and there's a football team in Hawaii. I'm just trying to shout everybody out that's coming back to my mind that I've spoken with. We have Kieran Gibbs in Miami. He started his soccer school, and he's a Bitcoin maxi, and he's now got hundreds of kids in Miami, and he's going to try and incorporate a little bit of Bitcoin education coming in through there. And obviously, these people need that help, and sponsors are looking to reach a wider audience. There's a beautiful opportunity, I think, for a lot of collaboration to come from this. So is this like
Absolutely.
Is this like your guy's job now? Like, is fiat world completely gone? I can't remember where you were last time we were.
In reality, fiat world is there. In our minds, fiat world is gone. If that makes sense.
No, let's put it that way. So I think it comes down to a little bit of still that mindset of security, and so because we have little kids, we are still involved in the fiat world today. We are currently making the rounds though, so we'll see how much longer that is going to be there. We have we are very confident, like, we are seeing revenue, right? We are, it's not like we are asking somebody for money and, now have to wait in 2 years in order to see revenue, right? Or income.
Yeah, the collaboration part of it in Bitcoin is really a big part of it. Like you say, we've had a lot of people reach out to us just offering up their time for free for anything we might need for any of the tournaments, which is great. Kind of how these professional golfers, the LPGA and PGA reached out to us, which are, you can't buy that type of um, relationship or networking type deal. And kind of lost my train of thought there.
Okay. I actually had a question for you. Are you going to come to BitBlock Boom or the next year's conference?
We're not scheduled, unfortunately, to no. Either any of them. We're not going to be in El Salvador, and we're not going to get across to the golf tournaments. And I'm gutted. And I'm hoping that you're going to inspire somebody on this side of the pond to start, a similar idea and get more.
Yeah, I was kind of saddened to hear that the golf tournament in Madeira is only going to be every other year or something, or the conference is only going to be every other year, right?
Every 4 years.
Every 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes, but there's no reason a golf tournament couldn't happen there. Like,
So funny that you should say that. So we are actually not trying to keep this all just within the US. As you can see, like we ventured out to El Salvador. We fully have it in the plan to venture out to Europe. So I think you can see a couple of events coming into Europe. I will say that like Bitcoin Magazine, the whole Bitcoin events team that's put together, the Bitcoin conference, have been super helpful to us on the first tournament, just connecting us with initial sponsors and things like that. After we said like, hey, this is on, let's do this.
mm.
They just like loved it, and they thought it was one of the best events. And so we do see a future there. And also, I'm kind of selfish in that, being German and wanting to go back to my home country once in a while. I see that as like a vital way to, like be everywhere, because ultimately, once we kind of freed from those fiat chains, like there's nothing holding us back, right? And then for me, it's like full picture, maybe at some point we must homeschool our kids because, we're just so busy traveling and showing them the world. So that would be the ultimate goal, right? I will tell you, and I just want to rattle these off real quick, just so people kind of are aware of who's already involved with us. So as far as this is only the current sponsors, for example, for the Max and Stacy tournament. So we have Unchained as our head sponsor. We have involved Fold App, Hotel Terraza. There's a private Bitcoiner, OGBTC on X, who's sponsored a whole. IBEX, Areas Law Firm, Brains, Epoch VC, LivePay, Banco Azteca, ZapRide, Joni and Friends, CNAD, BitRefill, Sovereign Studios, Samara Alpha, Vigilante Watches, Ledden, Beano Fire is going to actually host the after party, Clean Spark, and then Good Life El Salvador, and Casa, who's doing our welcome gift packages that are going to be sent to all the players.
So what if they sponsor a hole? What did that cost for the sponsor, and do they get carte blanche to like? But do you have guidelines?
Yeah, so
I would caveat it depends on the tournament. So, for example, if you sponsor the Bitcoin Golf Classic, which is the BitBlock Boom event, that's a first round tournament where we would just like testing the waters. So you can grab a sponsorship much cheaper.
Yeah, I wouldn't think of it as testing the waters. I would think of it as a building opportunity for a sponsor who's already going to be at the conference that wants a little bit more engagement with the community, but can't necessarily afford a big, $25,000 dinner for somebody, but wants to take part in a collective effort at a golf tournament where, say, you could sponsor a hole for $1,500 up to, $5,000, depending on the tournament. Still have access to that quality of networking opportunity and making those relationships and having that experience, but at a much more, reasonable price.
And I apologize because I actually have to run, but Chris will answer all the last questions.
Yep.
I apologize.
No problem. It's great to see you again, Frieda.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, so sponsoring a hole that's a cool thing to do, because as the sponsor, you could have a lot of fun figuring out,
Yeah, and then we have special holes. Then we have special holes too, like the closest to the pin holes.
Mhm.
Or at the Bitcoin Golf Championship. That one's actually being sponsored by a company called Samara Alpha, and they basically sponsor the 16th hole, which is a hole-in-one challenge hole. And if you get a hole-in-one, you win one whole Bitcoin.
Oh,
Yeah. So no matter what the price of it is. And we actually had a hole-in-one at our at the tournament in July, but it wasn't on the 13th hole, which was the challenge hole. It was on the 17th hole.
oh, who? Oh, could you imagine? Like that. Wow. I mean, I've never hit a hole in one, and I would be super gutted if it was to happen on the wrong hole that one
Yeah,
day.
yeah. So in his defense, he had already got a hole in one before, so it was his second hole in one.
Right. And
His name was Aaron Ingalls, and
oh,
yeah, he's a
shout out,
scrap golfer. He's an amazing
sending
golfer. He
sending
goes by
love.
BTC Aaron on.
Yeah. Sending love to Aaron because I saw his tweets recently about the sad news that he
Yeah,
suffered a brain tumor. But fingers crossed, everything is going okay with surgery and with rehab. Yeah, I mean, I've had Aaron on the show before, and he was very uh, influential with helping the mayor, Scott Conger of Jackson, Tennessee, understand Bitcoin and want to do something, at a government level and policy level with Bitcoin. And I've had Scott on the show as well. So yeah, send in love, Aaron. Hopefully you're tuning in. And oh,
yeah. I talked to him by text a couple weeks ago, and he seems to be in really good spirits. It was after his surgery. He's making some lifestyle changes, obviously. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a great guy. Such kind of a real big blow to the Bitcoin community to hear that. I wasn't going to bring it up if you didn't already, know about it,
yeah,
just for his, privacy of it all.
yeah.
But yeah, yeah, we definitely wish him the best.
And well done on the hole in one. Amazing.
Yeah, and I told him, I said he's got to come back because he also won the tournament.
Oh,
So I got a chance to actually watch him. He was in my group. I got a chance to watch him make the hole in one. And it's funny because I thought I was recording a big funny, I was kind of giving him the business before he teed off on that hole. I was like, 17th hole, last opportunity to shine, no more hole in one chances. And he was up there smiling and laughing. And then he hits this shot and it goes in the hole. And I was like, oh my God, did I just get that on video? And then I looked at my phone and of course it didn't record. Right. So it was for nothing.
damn. All right. Well, personal question to you then, because a lot of the plebs are in this position. They've got one foot in fiat land, and they're eyeing the exit. They're praying for the pump. You've obviously got something being built here perfectly at the right time, from what I can tell. So if that pump comes and this starts taking off, you're in a good position just to say goodbye to fiat land and start living the Bitcoin lifestyle. But you
Fingers
also
crossed.
but you also made a move. Yeah, but what was the thinking behind that? Because that's also another big decision, right? And these are things that you they decisions that keep you up at night. What was going through your head, and what made you actually pull off the band-aid and go for it?
All right, this is going to sound a little silly because every now and again, I find myself asking the same question. And you kind of summed it up really well with the synopsis of where Frida and I have been over the last 4 or 5 years. And I hadn't really thought about it that way. But yeah, those are a lot of big moves in a fairly short period of time. And I really can't say it was anything specific, and to kind of go back to that silly thing, it's almost like a golf game, like you were saying. You got to hit, every shot, think of it on its own. You can't worry about the next thing until you execute on the first thing. And so I think that that's really been kind of a roadmap for us, just to kind of have an idea of what we want. Like we knew we wanted to be in Bitcoin, but we didn't know, like I said, how our skill sets really fit into the community, because from the outside, you get the sense that unless you're in high finance or the bond market or venture capital or a family office or something like that, that there's really no industry for Bitcoiners yet, because they're quote unquote still building the rails. But the longer we've been in Bitcoin, the more we found like these machine shop operators or this watch guy or people who make clothing or sell bread at the farmers market or have wineries, create artwork. Bitcoiners are everywhere, and we are in every type of profession in the world, skilled labor trades that people want, that there's a market for. And it's just about, I guess, trying to find how your skills help you show that to the Bitcoin community. Peter McCormick was right when he said Bitcoin is the hack. And the sooner you take just full comfort in that and ownership of 100% of that's how it is, then the easier it becomes to make those tough decisions about separating yourself from the fiat world and getting more involved into this vibrant new economy.
Yeah. And the more people we can recruit, the better it is.
Yeah. And then just dumb luck. Right place, right time. Happened to be in Nashville. Nobody had done a golf tournament before. I said I was going to do it. I executed on it and, created that value. Everybody in Bitcoin, it's about creating the value. It's not just about creating something that you can sell to Bitcoiners. They have to have a bigger value to that thing than the Bitcoin that they're potentially foregoing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep that in mind, that'll help drive a decision on whether your business idea has merit or could set you up for failure right off the bat.
Well, it's great that you lent in, you took that risk, and here we are talking about your new business. So all the best of luck with that. And I hope, fingers crossed, one day to get out there and come to one of your guys' events in the US. If not, whenever you throw one over here in Europe, I'd love to know and be able to help you out in any way that I can. But I guess we'll close it down with the usual final question. And I can't remember what you answered before, but if you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
This question is a lot like my family. We used to watch Jeopardy all the time. And before, during the commercial break, after they give what the final category is, your job is to guess the answer before even knowing the question. And, every now and again, you get it right. But you have to put the same amount of work and effort into what do you know about the category, who's timely right now. I think everybody who deserves an orange pill has an orange pill. And those who will have it in the future will get it when they deserve it.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be very ambiguous in my answer today.
Yeah. No, I like it. You get Bitcoin at the price you deserve, basically. You
That's
get the
right.
orange pill. You get the orange pill at the time you deserve as well. And it is, all you got to do is think a slightly little bit differently to whatever mainstream media is trying to force down your throat. And you mentioned it earlier, like the spraying the chemicals in the air. That is still so divisive for people. I've been tweeting out. I've seen you guys have been tweeting about it as well and retweeting, and but it gets people riled up, and they just want to believe that whatever the mainstream media says or the nice weather lady says that's all the truth. Whereas if you just think about it slightly differently, you open your mind up to a whole different set of possibilities, and and it's not just that, like you mentioned, it's the health, it's your diet, it's goodness knows how many, there's a seed oil rabbit hole and whatever else. You get pulled into all of these little things, and all of that wrong think, for want of a better term, will lead you in the end, I believe, to look at the monetary system, and then you're away. Like there's no coming back after that.
Yeah, there's two certainties in Bitcoin. One is that all things will go to zero against Bitcoin, and two, all Bitcoiners will ultimately become carnivore diet aficionados. Because the more you learn about the food, the more you realize you can't eat any of it.
No, exactly right. Okay, well, great to have you guys back on again, and all the best of luck. Really looking forward to following your progress with everything that you're doing. Where can people learn more about the Bitcoin Sports Network? Where's the best place to follow and reach out? And if they can add value in any way, or if they want to come and play, what's the process?
Sure, sure. Two places. You can always go to our website, bitcoinsports.network, or you can go to our Twitter X page, which is BSN_events, EVENTS.
Excellent. All right. I'll put that stuff in the show notes, and hopefully the plebs will be reaching out to you.
Yeah, if anybody's interested in the tournaments, check us out, sign up for them. They're amazing experiences. You're going to love it, I assure you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, Daniel.
Appreciate what you're doing.
Great talking with you.